Today, we're mapping out a journey that is fascinating and, frankly, a little terrifying. We're going to climb the danger ladder of computer viruses. We'll start way down at the bottom with digital pranks that just kind of mess with your head, and we are going to climb all the way to the very top, exploring sophisticated code designed to shatter actual physical machinery. It's a structured look at how malware evolved from just being a mere annoyance into a literal weapon.
So I want you to keep this provocative question in the back of your mind as we go. Can a piece of code, something made entirely of ones and zeros, physically destroy a machine? Plant that seed right now, because as we move through our timeline today, you're going to see exactly how the answer to this question shifted from a definitive no to a world-altering yes.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1. Pranks and Trapdoors. Illusions of Danger.
You know, early on, a lot of malicious software wasn't really about destroying your hardware. It was more about creating these creepy illusions, or just exploiting basic human error to cause a massive headache. To establish our baseline, let's look at a pretty famous, meme-like piece of software created by the YouTuber Enderman, known as noescape.exe. Now, what's crucial to understand here is that this wasn't some wild virus spreading across the globe. It was a creepypasta virus. It had to be downloaded manually by the user, which honestly makes it more of an interactive horror story than an actual cyber threat.
But imagine this. When it was executed, it simulated a complete system takeover. You download a file, and suddenly your computer restarts to this stark, bright red screen instead of the usual blue. You boot up, and you find dozens of strange user accounts, including one ominously named No Escape. And to even log in, you had to type the password death. Once you were inside, applications would just rapidly move across your desktop all on their own. The screen would distort, it'd darken, and it all culminated in a fake, corrupted blue screen. It looked absolutely incredibly destructive. But it was an illusion. It was a simulated, complete system failure that posed literally zero real-world threat to your files or your hardware.
But, of course, not all early traps were just harmless horror games. Enter typo squatting. This is a brilliant, albeit totally malicious, use of human error. Basically, attackers design a site to look perfectly identical to a well-known web address, and they're just banking on the fact that your fingers might slip on the keyboard.
Let's move to Goggle and see how this builds using one of the most famous examples out there, Goggle.com. Notice the spelling there, 2 G's instead of an O. This domain was registered way back in 1998, and it just lay in wait for users trying to reach Google. By 2004, it became a massive headache. Because operating systems like Windows XP were super vulnerable to background downloads back then, simply landing on this typoed page could exploit what was known as the WMF vulnerability. This meant malicious code, often a fake antivirus called Spy Sheriff, could just install itself without you doing a thing. Spy Sheriff would then literally hold your system hostage with fake infection warnings until you paid them for a full version.
Now, the sheer volume of traffic generated by people simply mistyping Google made this specific domain incredibly valuable. In fact, it was so valuable that in 2022, the domain was sold at auction for a staggering $270,000. It is now safely under the control of Google, thankfully. But that massive number perfectly closes out our look at illusions and traps and brings us to a much, much darker era.
Section 2. The Ransomware Revolution. Hijacking your data.
We're taking a huge step up the danger ladder now, getting right into the weaponization of encryption. Welcome to the ransomware revolution, where the goal isn't just to annoy you anymore. The goal is to completely hijack your personal data and demand financial ruin to give it back. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark contrast between these two specific examples. On the left, we have CryptoLocker, which was a ruthless, highly destructive global extortion ring. But then on the right, we have ransomware, which was quite literally a joke created by a Korean programmer in 2017 that accidentally got released into the wild. They both locked files, sure, but their demands couldn't have been more different.
Get this. Instead of demanding Bitcoin, ransomware demanded gaming skills. Seriously, once it encrypted your files, a little window popped up telling you that the absolute only way to get your decryption key was to score 200 million points in an incredibly difficult bullet hell anime game called TH12. The malware actually actively tracked the player's live score during gameplay. Thankfully, because the whole thing was just a bad accident, the developer quickly released a decryption tool to save victims from this absurd challenge. But let's contrast that comedic breather with the sheer devastation of 2013's CryptoLocker. This was definitely no joke. CryptoLocker spread relentlessly through email attachments and botnets. Once it was inside your machine, it quietly scanned your computer for your most valuable documents and images, and then it locked them all away using incredibly strong cryptographic algorithms. It didn't want a high score, it wanted Bitcoin. And it applied this intense psychological pressure cooker by displaying a literal countdown timer on your screen. Without the unique private key stored on the attacker's server, recovering those files was virtually impossible. It forced businesses and everyday individuals globally to choose between losing their data forever or funding a criminal enterprise, right up until international law enforcement finally swooped in and disrupted its infrastructure.
Moving on to Section 3, Killing the Hardware. Software breaks iron.
Okay, we've seen illusions and we've seen data held hostage. But now I really need you to focus closely here because we are pulling the rug out. This is where malware crosses that boundary from the digital screen right into the physical world. Enter CIH, also widely known as the Chernobyl virus. Emerging in the late 1990s, CIH wasn't interested in your money and it wasn't trying to trick you with typos. It was built for one single purpose: irreversible damage. It would spread quietly through pirated software and just sit there, completely hidden in your system's memory, waiting for a specific trigger date, which was most famously April 26th, the actual anniversary of the Chernobyl nuclear disaster.
Now, to really understand exactly how destructive CIH was, we have to look at the BIOS. As you may already know, these lowest-layer firmware chips contain the fundamental instructions required for your computer to even know it's a computer when you press the power button. And in the 90s, these chips were basically completely unprotected.
So the crucial point is this. When April 26th finally rolled around, CIH didn't just crash your operating system or overwrite your hard drive. I mean, it did do that too, but it went way deeper. It actively corrupted the BIOS firmware, and by doing this, it completely bricked the motherboard. The system would just appear totally dead. You couldn't just pop in a disk and reinstall Windows, you had to physically rip out the BIOS chip or just replace the entire motherboard. Millions of computers were affected worldwide by this. It proved for the very first time on a massive scale that code could cause costly, physical hardware destruction.
And that brings us to Section 4, the ultimate cyber weapon, sabotaging industry.
This is the absolute peak of our danger ladder. If CIH proved code could destroy a home computer, our final subject proved code could be used as a precision weapon against critical, physical, industrial infrastructure. In 2010, the entire cybersecurity world fundamentally changed with the discovery of Stuxnet. This wasn't built by a rogue teenager in a basement or some financial crime syndicate. This was a highly complex industrial saboteur. Stuxnet was an operation of unprecedented complexity, utilizing multiple previously unknown vulnerabilities, what we call 0 days, to infiltrate totally isolated industrial control systems. Because of its extreme sophistication, experts widely link the creation of Stuxnet to nation-state efforts associated with the United States and Israel.
And this brilliantly illustrates the terrifying logic of the infiltration, which was remarkably patient. Step 1, it actively searched only for specific Siemens Step 7 software systems. Step 2, once found, it quietly modified the instructions in the programmable logic controllers, or PLCs, that were managing heavy machinery. Step 3, it specifically targeted nuclear centrifuges. These are machines that spin at incredibly high speeds to enrich material, and it forced them to speed up and slow down in abnormal, highly stressful patterns. And Step 4, which is truly devious, it intercepted the monitoring signals and sent fake, totally normal readings back to the control screens. It's literally like someone secretly pressing the gas pedal of your car straight to the floor, redlining the engine until it physically brakes, while your dashboard speedometer is just calmly telling you you're doing 60 miles per hour. The engineers watching the screens thought everything was perfectly fine, while the machines were literally tearing themselves apart.
So what was the result of this incredibly targeted sabotage? Reports actually suggest that roughly 1,000 centrifuges were physically damaged at the Natanz nuclear facility in Iran. Code, delivered via a digital infection, had successfully reached out and physically broken heavy industrial machinery inside a highly secured facility.
Which brings us right back to the question we started with, just evolved for the modern era. If highly sophisticated code can silently destroy heavy machinery inside a secured nuclear facility, what physical infrastructure is truly safe today? Your power grid? Your city's water supply? The escalation from simple screen pranks all the way to industrial sabotage is complete, and it leaves us living in a world where the lines between digital security and physical safety simply no longer exist. Thank you so much for focusing in with me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I will see you next time.